Hey there, and welcome to the 9th installment of Let's Code. So last time we finished up our send messages server implementation. We touched a little bit on some use cases for partial application. We talked a bit about Lodash. We pushed our send messages functionality into our app domain, and we did some much needed cleanup on the whole lot of it. This time we're going to get started on the other interaction. The last interaction. The receive messages interaction.
Oh yeah! Yes, yes!
First, we'll address the consumer portion to transmit messages. Then we'll get the messages into our app domain to display to the user. And we'll finish it all off by finding a home for those messages inside of our app domain. So all in all, should be pretty great. So with our goals in mind, let's code. All right, so let's kick this off by first addressing the consumer side of things. There's basically two things we need to do on the consumer part. We need to, on the server portion of that, we need to implement this call to io.emit. This is basically what I believe is going to trigger an event out to all connected sockets. And then here on the client side, we need to write a handler for that event. So we do that through this on method here. We just specify the event name, and then we provide some sort of function to act as a callback to that event, so when it triggers. Pretty easy to do, should be pretty easy to get in there. We'll start off with the server side, because that's basically a one line of code for us with very little explanation. We'll jump into here on server, jump into sockets. Bada boom, bada bing, here we are. We're going to keep this console.log just so we have some sort of feedback in case everything breaks for us. It would be nice to know that we're getting into this function. So while we're developing this, we'll keep this console.log in here. So now I'm going to commit a horrible, horrible sin, and I'm going to copy and paste in the event. There's ways we could clean that up to where we're not copying and pasting, but right now let's just get this working and we can worry about the lipstick later. Alright, so emit, that's silly. We'll go ahead and pass the message along as the payload. And I think MSG, that's coming in as message here. Okay, yep. So that's good. This is pretty much all we should have to do right now on the server side. So let's go ahead and close that feller out, and we will jump into the client side of our consumer. So here in the client side, we basically need to set up a handler to this event. So look, when we're doing this emit here, see how the first parameter there is an event name? So we might be able to get away with the same semantic pattern here. So let's make a loaded method here. We will load it, we'll call it onMessage. So we're going to keep the event the same, that chat message there. Again, since we have duplication, we could probably clean this up. But again, this is on the consumer side, so I don't know, it's basically a mock-out for us for our front-end application. So I don't know, I'm not going to put too much effort into it right now anyway. So what we want to do is we'll have a subscribe method, I guess. And we will bind socket to that subscribe method and then load it with chat message. So now let's make that subscribe method here. Okay, so now I believe that's all we need to do, and that should make it into our app space here where we pass the adapter in. Let me go ahead and put some final touches on this. There we go. All right, that should build just fine. Let's make sure, we'll give this a test, make sure there's no errors. Test, perfect. Okay, so let's verify that that did in fact make it into our application domain. So we'll jump here under app, as this is the demarc point, or the demarcation I should say, and we will do a console.log on adapter, I believe. Yep, adapter. So if everything is peaches and roses, we should have on message here. Bam, there it is. So that's looking really, really good. So it is actually in our app domain now. So let's just use it since it's here. We'll just throw a quick test in. We'll do adapter.onMessage, and that parameter to that, since this is loaded here, is going to be our callback function. Okay, so now if everything's hooked up and working, we should be able to do test, and let's identify this, what's going on there. So we'll do IO and give a fat arrow here and do one of these. So we'll know that it's coming from the IO object. All right, so we'll do test, and look at that, IO reported test. So that also should mean that if we were to do one of these, create a new one of those, and we'll go to localhost 1337, so we're not in the browser sync. We'll open this Explorer up. I should go, hello, my friend. And look at that. Hello, my friend. It hit up in this browser. So we now have pure socket communication. This is great. So now the next thing we really need to do is get that to where it's adding LIs there. And we're going to do that in our application domain. So right now, since we have all the consumer stuff done, this would be a great time to go ahead and get a commit in. So now that we know we have a working consumer part, let's go ahead and get a commit going. So we're still on master here. Let's see. Yep, those are the files we want. So let's create a branch here. We'll call it receive messages. Okay. All right, GST, and let's do a quick GD. Make sure we don't have any weird console.logs or anything there. That's both listening to chat message. Man, we could clean that up probably. Oh, nope, I said no. And that is the bit on the server. Okay, so let's git commit all of this against this branch, and we will say implemented consumer portion of receive messages. Okay, alrighty. Next up is the application domain. Okay, we're going to start on the application domain now. So let's head down into our leaf component that depends on the receiving of messages, and that's going to be log. So let's first break this out by making our same component pattern. So now everything should be exactly as it was. So are we getting our log component? Yes, we are. Okay, so how Mithril likes to do things is they represent any state or anything in a simple view model. I like to put the view model into the controller, especially for doing this component type work. It just, I don't know, it saves an extra step. But sometimes I will use the traditional view model and have a separate model that the controller interacts with, depending on how crazy the interaction needs to be between user interaction and the state of the model. So, but for this simple thing, just to get this going, we are going to add just a simple list of messages here. And let's go ahead and pretty this up a little bit. Make it look nice. Okay, so now the controller is the first argument that's passed here. So now we should be able to, let's do a let, and we'll grab messages out of here, and we'll grab that out of controller. Okay, so we should have messages available now. Let's just check that. And there we go. Yep, messages is an empty array. Okay, so perfect. Now, typically how you would do what we need to do here is you would create, or just basically use straight up JavaScript and just do a map across the, do a map on the array and then spit it out. So we'll do that with a little JSX fun here. So just to see if this is working the way that we think it is, we'll just do a push of hello and add that to the array. Okay, no errors there. We have message. Why do we have that? Because somebody doesn't know JSX. That's why. Okay, so now we have message in there. Okay, and that says hello. Perfect. So if we add anything else to here, it should render one out. So we'll say goodbye, goodbye, and see what that looks like. Okay. So there's goodbye. In our ULs, we have hello, goodbye, and LIs. So that's beautiful. We'll go ahead, let's leave that in for now. We also want to add a class name here, just so we can provide styling. And we'll go with the BEM extension, or the BEM, like we're doing for the rest of it. And we'll do log, and we'll do item. Now we'll do message. Make it very specific. Okay, so now that should refresh, and we have our li class log message, log message. So that looks really, really good. Let's see here. So I don't like how long this line is getting, and I don't really want to make this multi-line here. So it's only at 70, but let's go ahead and so we now have that map function defined there. Let's just make sure this is working before we add some pretty, and we still are getting hello, goodbye. So we're good there. Let's pretty this up a bit and make it a little easier to understand what's going on. You always have to remember, we do not write code for computers. We write code for people. So it's good to write code that people can read. Worry about what the computer's doing later. That's what we have compilers and builders and things for. Okay, so now that looks really darn good. And that looks good as well. So I think we are pretty much done with this log component. So let's go ahead and throw a commit on this. We'll make sure we are at our normal state. Perfect. Let's do a GST. It's only that file. A GD. That looks pretty darn good. It's pretty much all we did was in this file. And yeah, so this is getting us what we want. So let's go ahead, git commit all, and we are going to call this added messages to log component. Okay, so that looks pretty darn good. Now that we have this all hooked up and working the way that we want, let's go ahead and move these messages up to the next parent. We want, I don't think this is a good place to keep this state, and we're going to want this state passed into us. So let's go ahead and add the ATTRs there, and we will let messages, and we'll pull that from ATTRs, or the attributes, and we'll do that. So now that should be getting in there. We're going to have probably an error because I don't think map's going to be defined on that. Yeah, cannot read property map of undefined. So that's going to be a problem. Let's go ahead and now move that array up into the parent and pass it in. So the parent of this, we'll just do a quick little, this is log, and we're going to check source.js. The parent is going to be import log. So we're looking for the import. That's going to be app layout. So let's jump into here, and yep, there's app layout. Let's go to log. We need to get the messages into here. Okay, so that's going to return messages there. Now we need to get that in here. Let's just simply, for now, we will spread the controller out across that, just like we're doing there. We'll go clean that up later. So right now it should have messages. It should be in there, and there's tickles. Look at that. That is super duper awesome. We have tickles in there. Okay, so Now we know that the parent is pushing this in, app layout is pushing in its version of the state to that, and everything is hooking up the way that we want it. So that is looking pretty darn good. I still don't think app layout is the place for this to live though, so I think we need to push it up one more level. So let's go ahead and awk, we'll do app layout and look for the import here, and we'll go source.js, and that is going to be in app.js. That's where it is instantiated, or brought in, I should say. So we'll come over here. Actually, let's close this out. We'll come over here for app and open that feller up. So now let's look for app layout. There it is. So right now we have this adapter here, which is great because that is where it's coming in. So I'm thinking, let's make a method here, or a function, I should say. So now we can spread the adapter as adapter. And then here in container, we can just do app layout. Okay, and we want to call that. Beautiful. Alright, since we'll just take advantage of closure here, that's why I moved it in here. We don't have to set up parameters and stuff. We'll probably refactor this out, but let's just make it look good for now. So here we will do messages is equal to messages. Okay, looks like that built. Messages is not defined. Okay, and that's because we did not put it there. So now let's take this array from app layout where messages is, and we'll move that over here, paste it in here, and from here we then need to bring messages in. Yep, and there's our tickles. So it's been moved out, and it is inside of our actual demarc point where we can do, I think the demarc point here is where the marriage of state coming in should populate that array, and then we'll just push the array down. We just have to be very cool. Let's make sure that nothing is broken. So we hit test, we got message test there, and everything is good. Okay, so now that we have that there, again, we'll clean all of this up. There's a lot of issues with this, but we'll address that in the next segment. So let's check this out. We'll do a quick GD on this, make sure, and actually let's just do a full screen since some of these lines were a little long. We'll go ahead, GST, GD, and looking here, that looks pretty good. Pretty darn good indeed. Here, and that's spreading controller. We need to fix that too. We don't want to spread the controller over all that. We're sending in send message to the log, and we're also sending in messages that we just added into entry. So we need to kind of break that up a little bit. That's a shortcut we've been using, but I don't know. And who knows, maybe it's fine. Maybe we'll leave it that way. I keep going back and forth on that because it's only going to grab what it needs off of it. So why set up all these restructuring and putting together? I might just spread the controller out over it, leave it like that, and if something wants something, it can grab it. I don't know. That might be a code smell. We'll find out. All right. So I think that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and git commit all, and we will say push messages up to app demarc. Okay. All right. And with that, I think we are done with this portion. Well, that's going to do it for now. Be sure to come back next time where we'll be getting a handle on this application state and then populating that application state with incoming messages. Pretty exciting stuff, y'all. So if you want to stay up to date with all the latest vids, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you want to like or comment or anything like that down below, your feedback is greatly appreciated. So until next time, if you find yourself bored in life, chances are you probably aren't doing it right.